What is going on, Pacer Nation? And welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice Pacers. Well, guys, believe it or not, Indiana Pacers play basketball on Thursday, an actual regular season game against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Of course, we had to bring on our good friend Alex Golden from Setting the Pace Pacers podcast. Alex, feels like we just had you on, man. We're talking off air, but it's crazy, man. We're already to October, and the Pacers are now gearing up for their 2025-2026 season. How you been?
I've been doing good. I will say this. It's a bit different this time around because I will say the last couple of seasons, the Colts have been so bad that everyone's so excited for Pacers basketball. But now the Colts are like 6-1,
Right.
looking like the front runners for the AFC. And it's like, where did this come from? And the Pacers can't find enough guys to be healthy for their point guard position. So it's quite the interesting shift that we've seen in like the last 6 months between both franchises. But it's going to be a fun, weird, interesting season. I'm excited for it. And Thursday night, get our first crack against the Oklahoma City Thunder, who knows at this point as we're recording, that game is still going on with them in Houston, but they could be, 0-1 to start the year, which means they could be ready for their first victory. So I'm kind of hoping they pull it out against Houston as we're talking right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you mentioned it, just a crazy season last year for the Indiana Pacers, all the way to the NBA Finals. One game away there, man, from really just one half away from securing their first win in franchise history. Just talk to me, man, about just for you personally and just your podcast and everything. Like, talk to me about that magical postseason, man, because it was just some incredible stuff that happened there. From your perspective, man, just what a magical run it was.
Yeah, I mean, there were so many crazy things that happened in the playoffs, right? It's like, you think about it from this perspective, if you go back and watch the starting five and you see the game winner Halliburton has at home against the Bucks in game 5 to get everything kind of, to set the stage a little bit. And then you have the game 2 step back winner over Ty Jerome in Cleveland. And then you have game 1 against the Knicks down by 17. Aaron Nesmith loses his freaking mind, hits every single three that he takes. And then all of a sudden Tyrese Halliburton hits the big step back to tie the game. Unfortunately, it wasn't in the game winner because that would have been the craziest game winner maybe in NBA history, but goes into overtime, does the choke sign, and then the Pacers pull that one out where they probably, they could have lost that game in overtime. There was a big swing there, like 2 minutes left that could have really changed things. And then it ended up being it could have been a 6-point Knicks lead with like a minute and a half to go. And all of a sudden it became a 1-point Pacers deficit because they called for a foul and then Nembhard hit a 3. So pretty crazy stuff, but I will just say this: the game winner against OKC in game 1, after never leading in the game until the final shot. Incredible stuff. And so that's what made this season so magical. And when you think about it, the Pacers have never been that close to a championship, and they're one Achilles tear away from winning it all. I don't care what any Thunder fan wants to say in my mentions. I don't care if it's a what if, and we don't know the facts. You can't convince me the Thunder were going to win the NBA championship if Halliburton stayed healthy, because Halliburton was on a heater that game. The Pacers were clicking, and OKC looked a little rattled. They really did. And it took an Alex Caruso coming off the bench to knock on a couple threes down to kind of settle them down. But it took them until the second half to kind of figure things out once Halliburton was down and the Pacers went back to the locker room and they just weren't the same. So, yeah, it's emotional, man. It's really emotional when you think about it because you are that close. You can taste victory, and then it just slips right through your fingers. And then all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, you're without your starting point guard and your starting center from your championship run team for the next year. And it's just like, man, life hits you fast. You got to keep it moving. But, man, it was special. And the fans that we've interacted with throughout that run, some of the best fans I've ever seen in my life. And just the way Gainbridge Fieldhouse was rocking. I mean, even the fans that traveled, kudos to you. I mean, I know that winning will bring fans, but at the end of the day, let's see if those fans stick around because I think this team is special. And while this season might not have the same level of excitement as last year did, it's going to be hard to repeat that. I think you're going to see a lot of exciting basketball in the future for this core group of guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you mentioned it, just some crazy stuff that happens with the Tyrese injury, then losing Miles Turner, losing 2 key guys that have been a part of your franchise the last number of years. And now you have to try to figure that out this year. You got to figure out that point guard position. You got to figure out the center position. And it seems like right now there's a few different players the Pacers have brought in to try to, fill those roles as best they can. What's kind of been your impression just overall on what you've seen so far in the preseason and just the things the Pacers have done to try to fill some of the obvious things they're not going to have from the team a year ago.
If we were talking about the center rotation in terms of what they've tried to bring in, I think of the song from Christmas, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, Stink, Stink, Stunk. And no offense to our centers, but they have not played particularly well. And I have basically said on Setting the Pace that the most consistent center of the four has been Tony Bradley. And you can't convince me otherwise throughout the 4 games they played. Isaiah Jackson probably had the best peak of all 4 of those. I thought he got better as the preseason went along. I thought Jay Huff got worse as the preseason went along. And I really don't know what to make of James Wiseman still. I feel like it's just a big mystery box, and I have not been overly impressed with what I saw. I think he was like a minus 42.6 net rating or something along those lines when he was on the court in preseason. And that is not to his fault. I mean, there's a lot of weird things that go into that. He was playing a lot in the fourth quarter with some really not so pacery lineups with Jalen Slauson and Gabe McLaughlin, a lot of G League guys. So it's hard to really kind of give a fair evaluation of that. But overall, from that standpoint, not great. The point guard situation really sucks, to be honest with you. They lose TJ McConnell on the first preseason game to a hamstring injury. Second preseason game, Quentin Jackson goes down with a hamstring injury. They bring in Campaign, they cut him. They bring in DeLon Wright, they cut him. They bring in Monty Morris. Oh, wait, he can't even make it to training camp because he's hurt. So it's just been a whirlwind of who is going to play backup point guard to Andrew Nembhard this year? Can we just get one healthy point guard? And it's probably going to come down to, and first of all, I didn't bring up Cam Jones. Cam Jones, their rookie. Right. He's out with a back injury for at least another 3 or 4 weeks. So that is just crazy. So you really go through like 5-6 options, and your ultimate conclusion is, let's try Talon Peter, who's never played point guard at point guard, to back up Andrew Nembhard. Let's see if Shepard, who played point guard some in high school, can play some point guard. Let's try point Jarris Walker at times. So they are really grasping for straws here, trying to figure out what they can do with these different positions. But the good news is the starters have looked pretty good in the preseason. The core 4 of Benedict Mathurin, Andrew Nembhard, Pascal Siakam, Aaron Nesmith, those 4 players in the 3 games they played had a pretty solid positive on off numbers. So I think there's something to be said of that. Obi Toppin has looked good with that group as well. So it's they've got talent, don't get me wrong, but they're just missing their depth, which was their strength last year, because all these injuries keep piling up.
Is there anything you feel like they can do other than just wait for guys to get back? Are there any moves you feel like the Pacers can be doing here to start the season to maybe combat some of these injuries? I mean, sometimes it's just, and even, with every team we have injuries, but just the amount of injuries, is there anything that the front office you think maybe will want to do, or maybe you've been talking about things you want to see the Pacers potentially do there just from a depth purpose standpoint?
I just don't really see the options out there for point guard if you're looking for a point guard. The only name that makes a little bit of sense is Spencer Dinwiddie to me personally. And Spencer Dinwiddie is a guy that has killed the Pacers notoriously throughout his career, and the Pacers fans have kind of had to suffer what Dinwiddie has brought to the table, which is like, really, why are we talking about a guy like Spencer Dinwiddie? But at this point, he can shoot the 3. He's a little bit bigger. I think he can play the 1 and the 2. That could be an option, but it's also just like, does he want to come to a place that he knows maybe in like 3 weeks he's going to be the 3rd string point guard behind TJ McConnell, or maybe even the 4th string point guard behind Quentin Jackson, and not really fit in with this team? So I think that is something that maybe some of these veteran point guards are looking at. And honestly, like Talon Peter, the way he played in preseason, you have to feel encouraged about that. And Ben Shepard, Jarris Walker, they know this system. And that's the big thing. The Pacers play such a unique style, and they have such a unique system that if you try to get thrown into the fire on opening night or second night of the year, it's like, it's going to be really hard for you to figure out. Like Rick Carlisle talked about how long it took for Jay Huff to get in shape with how they want to play because he just seemed gassed. Cameron Payne, his first game, he said after like 3 or 4 minutes, he was asking to come out because he couldn't catch his breath. So with how fast they want to play and the style they want to play, it's not just as easy as, hey, that's a good point guard, let's go get him and put him on the roster, he'll figure it out. They got to find guys that make sense for their team. And right now, I don't really see anything out there. And then, of course, at the center spot, you've already got 4 guys. So right, you're not going to do anything there. But I do say maybe there could be some regret a little bit later on for not bringing back Thomas Bryant. I know Thomas Bryant did not have the greatest playoff run. There were some very high highs and some very low lows, and probably more low lows than high highs for Thomas Bryant. But throughout the regular season, he was very, very, very good, very solid. They turned their season around when they made that trade for him with the Miami Heat to get a backup for Miles Turner. And it's like, if you look at the group they have now, you can make the case that he would be a starter with this group they have out there because he can spread the floor, because he can block shots, and he knows the system. So I think sometimes we've seen it the last 2 seasons with Jalen Smith and Thomas Bryant. Now, the Pacers overthinking bad playoff performances by these centers and kind of erasing what they did in the regular season, because you got to get to the playoffs first. And I think banking on 2 guys with Achilles injuries and then trading for a guy that's been a journeyman and a half and Jay Huff with a lot less reps than Thomas Bryant. I don't know. I think they maybe got a little bit too cute with it and probably overthought it.
Yeah. That makes sense. You kind of mentioned it there with talking about, a guy like Taylor Peter and a few of these other young guys, and definitely going to open up more opportunities for some of these younger players who maybe last year didn't get a ton of minutes or whatever just because of the depth the Pacers had. What are some young guys that you think are going to get more opportunities here with some of these injuries and some of the departures in the offseason, and get more opportunities, I suppose, with some more minutes here with the Pacers in 2025?
Yeah, I would say the 2 names that probably stick out the most are, like you mentioned, Taylor Peter. He's definitely been getting a bigger opportunity, led the team in minutes in preseason, and then Johnny Furphy if he can get healthy. So Johnny Furphy hurt his ankle in the OKC preseason game number 2. It was about 10 days ago since that preseason game. So Rick Carlisle said he probably should be good to go. Jarris Walker should be good to go. But I think if you kind of look at the rotation, I felt like Furphy, if everybody was healthy, was more like that 11th guy if you're including TJ McConnell healthy, with Shepard, Walker, Obi Toppin, and then whatever big you want to play behind Isaiah Jackson. Kind of felt like Furph was that guy at the 11th spot. And Taylor Peter was like 17, 18 in terms of your depth chart, probably even 18. And now these 2 guys are going to have an opportunity. And really, Ray J. Dennis could have an opportunity here as well to kind of be an emergency point guard if things kind of get that hectic with, foul trouble for Nembhard or foul trouble for a Taylor Peter. So those are 3 guys that I think are going to have a bigger opportunity. I think Peter just kind of fits his system pretty well. He plays hard. He has great feel for the game, good shooter, athletic, defensive minded. Like, he just kind of does all the simple things, doesn't try to make it too complicated. And then Furphy is just still learning, right? And his 3-point shot, it looks good, but it's been very streaky, up and down, inconsistent. I think if he can hit that 3-point shot at a higher clip, it's going to help him. But I love his ability to get the ball and rip and go to the basket. We've seen Johnny Furphy put a lot of guys on posters, and hopefully we see more of that throughout the season because he's got that tenacity in him. He wants to work hard, but, I was watching him at practice on Sunday, and he was, making like 2 or 3 threes in a row, then miss the next one, and he would be very disappointed in himself for not being able to knock, 5, 6, 7 in a row down. It was just like he did a couple, and then he missed a couple, and then he's in his head. So young player, just got to kind of figure things out. But I think those are the guys that I'm keeping an eye on for big opportunity because of the injuries.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate your time, Alex. One more question before I let you go. I had to kind of throw this in here. And obviously, who knows how the season's going to go. But based off of some of the things you've seen from, the injuries that have happened and just some of the players the Pacers have brought in, where are you kind of feeling like this team's ceiling and this team's floor could be for this 2025 season?
That's a good question. Yeah, I would say if you would have asked me before the McConnell injury, I thought they could be a higher seed, just because I think he means that much to that second unit and he gets so many guys involved. That injury has me a little bit concerned, and I don't know how long it's going to be before he plays. Rick Carlisle said ask him on November 9th how he's doing, which would be around 10 games. That's a lot of games in the NBA. Yeah. So that's a decent percentage, and if he's not ready to go by then, they're going to be on a road trip on a second night of a back-to-back for that date specifically too. So it could be after the road trip, which is about 12, 13 games in. You're like, oh, man, this is not looking great. So I would have said before McConnell got hurt, I had them actually penciled in at the 6th seed. I thought they could be a team that didn't have to make the play-in. To me right now, I would still say like that's to me is their ceiling. I can't see them getting higher than a 6th seed. And I think their floor is probably all the way to 11 or 12 in the Eastern Conference. I think they could potentially, if things just kind of fall apart, if they have a Pascal injury or a Mathurin injury, like they are just so thin right now with being one injury away that I think they could not bottom out, but they could fall to being a lottery team. And at that point, knowing that your playoff hopes might be dead come beginning of March or it looks very bleak, maybe you kind of make that transition where you're like, you know what, let's just use the rest of the year to develop some young guys, give them more minutes, not worry about winning, save our guys for next year. Tyrese comes back healthy. Maybe you can get into a top 5 pick in the draft and kind of go that route. So that's where I think they're at, between 6 and 12, and probably somewhere in the middle, more like a play-in team. But hey, I think that if they can just do what they do best and let Rick Carlisle be Rick Carlisle, like, they could surprise a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Alex, I do appreciate your time again. Why don't you let everybody know where they can find you and find all the work that you do over there covering the Pacers?
Yeah, Setting the Pace is the podcast Monday through Friday. If you guys want to check out the daily podcast, just look it up on Google or wherever you get your podcast at. YouTube as well. We're there every time that you are looking for an episode. We got something out, whether it's kind of the same similar conversation that we're having here, or it's a different segment like we're doing on our latest episode on Wednesday that releases. True or false? Give 12 statements about the team, and me and Fi should determine if that statement will become true or false. Things like that. Just getting to know these players, this team a little bit better. So if you want to check me out there, or check out the podcast there. If you want to check me out on Twitter at Alex Golden NBA, doing more on Instagram as well at Alex Golden NBA. If you want to follow that, and we're on TikTok at Setting the Pace 3. So yeah, just all over the place. Wherever you guys have social media, you guys can check us out. But we really appreciate you guys doing that, and I really appreciate you, Cody, for having me on.
Absolutely, man. We'll have to do it again soon. Obviously, a little bit closer than we have the last time. It would be great to throughout the course.
You've got some Colts football to cover, so I get it.
We do. You know, it's really hard to cover the NBA. I'll be honest with you. So I give you guys props. Like, there's a lot of games, but I'm like, gosh, like you have to just be on it all the time, or else you can miss a game very easily. So
yeah, we'll have game recaps every single game this season. So if it's a Saturday game, Sunday game, late at night in Los Angeles, be ready. I'm gonna be up. I'm gonna lose sleep that day, but hey, you know what? It's fine. I got to bring the content. I got to bring the reaction. So we want to make sure you guys know that we are here for you to cover this team from the first day of January to the last day of December.
Absolutely. Well, guys, be sure to go check out Alex and all he has on X and everywhere else he has his podcast. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. That'll do it for this one. And as always, guys, go Pacers.